And welcome back to Real Chill Conversations. Hello, ladies. How you all doing today?
Hello,
Doing
I'm
well.
good.
We have Dr. Ernicia Johnson. Did I
Yes,
get that right? Okay.
Aaronisha.
And we have Brenna in the building.
Hey guys.
And okay, let's get into this topic today about mental health today. I know we have been talking about mental health, and I'm so glad that we have a professional today in the building that can answer some questions and we can talk about it. So, before we get started, Dr. Johnson, why you don't tell everybody about what you do, where they can find you?
Yes, thank you guys for having me. First, I wanted to thank you all for allowing me to be a part of your platform. I'm Aaronisha Johnson, and I'm a licensed professional counselor as well as a psychology professor. I can be found on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all under my business name, which is Therapeutic Gems. And Therapeutic Gems is where I offer individual and family counseling, as well as I do psychoeducational workshops. So if you are interested in booking a psychoeducational workshop, please send me a message on my website, which is therapeuticgemsllc.com. Or if you live in the states of Georgia and Mississippi, you can contact me if you're interested in individual or family counseling.
Oh, wonderful.
That's great. And everybody heard it. So please go and follow her, or if you need any help, you know where to reach her. We had some questions today that we wanted to ask you as well. And I guess we can start with that. So I want to know like what motivated you to become a mental health specialist?
I love that question. Since a child, I've always enjoyed helping people. I've always been the person that people tell their problems to, and I've always been one to try and help people find solutions. So I didn't realize that counseling was an actual profession until I would say I was in the 11th grade when I took a psychology class. And my psychology professor was also my school counselor. So I was very interested in learning more about her career. And it was at that moment that I realized, wait a second, I love studying people. I love studying behavior. I love helping people. So this is definitely the field that I'm supposed to be in. So I just love helping people.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead, Brenda. I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. I was going to say that's an excellent answer. I think for me, I really just wanted an understanding of people and my backgrounds because I grew up in a very predominantly white suburban area and was just one of the few black kids at my school. And I think I was in the 10th grade and took a psychology class. And that psychology teacher had such an impact on my life and on my understanding of people that that's what I decided I was going to declare my major in college.
That's awesome. Very similar story. That's amazing. It's definitely an interesting class. And I was just so excited, to make that my major. And I really enjoyed the field.
Yeah, and
And
it
helping people.
definitely gives you a perspective on people and different backgrounds and why people make some of the decisions and choices that they do, because that was something that I didn't understand. There was a lot of I just didn't understand where it was coming from, and I couldn't find the answers until I actually took that class, and then it all started to make sense as we
Yes.
as we dove deeper into people's situations and nature versus nurture and all those types of things as well. So kudos to you for entering into the mental health profession. I think it's something that is very much needed, and I'm glad that we are on this mission to push forward and support mental health awareness and offer the guidance and point people in the direction to getting help that they need, because years and years ago, I mean, especially in our communities, it was frowned upon, and it wasn't looked as favorable. It was like you had an issue, and it's like nobody asked to have cancer, nobody asked to have diabetes or high blood pressure, nobody asked to have mental health issues. That's not something that, you choose for yourself, so it should be treated as such.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. I'm so happy that the stigma has gotten a bit better. I think it's still there, but over the last couple of years, I would say, especially since the pandemic, more and more people are reaching out. More and more people are proudly stating that they are in therapy. So I'm really excited to see how those numbers will increase over the next couple of years.
That's a very interesting thing. What kind of patients give you the hardest time during therapy?
I would say I don't have this as much now, but I used to have a lot of clients who were court ordered to be in therapy. So therefore, they didn't really have the drive or the desire for therapy. So they
They
were
were
just
pulled
attending.
towards it.
Yes. So yeah, they were just attending just to be there because they had to be. So they weren't really open to the process. So I would say every client is different. But I would say the ones that are, and I don't really consider people difficult to work with, but I would say that maybe it's a bit harder is if they're not really open to sharing what they're really thinking or sharing what they really feel, or if they're not really open to figuring out how to make things better, or not really wanting a deeper level of self-awareness. So sometimes that just makes the process a little bit slower. But although those may be the most difficult, they're also rewarding in a way, just because it's great to see the person get to the other side of it. And of
Right,
course, not everybody gets to the other side. Some
right.
people, they drop out, or they just stop coming. Um, but those that decide to stick with it and it just takes them a little bit longer, they're very rewarding to actually witness.
Do you find that you get more of a resistance from men attending counseling than you do from women, or is it about the same?
You know what? I just said this to a colleague the other day. There are more and more men who are attending therapy. I would say right
Wow.
now I have a good balance of both men and women. Um, you know what? I don't think the clients that I have, I can't say that men are more resistant or women are more resistant. I think it's about the same.
That's good. That's good to hear. I'm glad.
That's good to hear because a lot of men do say, um, they are coming out more now
Mhm.
Right.
than what they used to. So
Right.
I'm glad to hear that as well.
I love that a lot of athletes have now started coming out saying, "Hey, I'm in therapy. I take medication or whatever it may be." They're coming out, and I think is allowing other men to come out and say, "You know what? It's nothing wrong with me seeking therapy." So across the board, I think entertainers, the media, they're doing a better job. They're doing a better job of making it normal to seek any type of mental health assistance.
What is your viewpoint on children in therapy? Not something that's ordered by the school or court ordered or anything like that, but just something to give them a safe space to be able to express themselves and to be able to pick on some positive coping skills that may be going through some things at home.
I think with children, it's very important to be relatable, to make yourself be relatable. I think it's also important for me, I would say the most significant thing that I do with children before helping them is allowing them to know that it is a safe space. And
Right.
oftentimes I can do that by finding out what they like. Sometimes I have to get creative. I have to use art. I have to use toys. I have to use games. I have to use different things to engage them into the process. And the more we build that therapeutic relationship, it becomes a lot easier for them to open up about, their thoughts, their feelings, or even for us to discuss their behaviors. Um, I often realize that children are, once they trust you, sometimes they can be a bit more expressive than the adults.
Oh,
Right.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that because kids are really reserved. Some of them, like, they have to get to feel you and know you in order to open up a little bit more.
Hmm. Definitely. And once they get to know you, it's almost like they look at you. I have clients that refer to me as like, "Oh, you're my paid best friend." It's like, okay, I'm not your friend, but if that helps, then yes.
Right.
I want to ask this question too because I think that this is very important for me because I do have people around me that I would like to come a certain way. So since you're here and you could definitely help me with that advice, what can friends and loved ones do to support someone who is struggling with their mental health?
That's a great question because I think sometimes we don't know what to say as a friend or as a family member. I think the biggest thing is one, asking your loved one what is it that they need for support. Asking them what they need, encouraging them to seek help. If you're noticing that they're different, and when I say different, I just mean in terms of the way that they view things, maybe their functioning is a lot different, maybe they're more isolated or they're withdrawn, you haven't been hearing from them as much. You want to make sure that you're reaching out and checking to make sure that they're okay. Um, Encouraging them
But is
that.
it is reaching out always the answer? Like, because I know sometimes when I get on in my depressed mode, yes, guys, I get depressed.
Same.
uh
I sometimes don't want to hear my phone ring and be like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Sometimes like I be needing you here with me.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I can see that the isolation will definitely start to kick in and kind of withdrawing from, everyday, conversation and communication and just having time to yourself to just think. But I do respond. I definitely am one of those people that does respond better when I have someone in person with me just to kind of sit with me and, just be there with me in the moment is much more soothing than, hey, is there anything that I can do? Because typically my answer is going to be, I don't know. Because that's
Right.
what
Yeah,
I do.
you're going to have the same answer.
Yeah.
So why
Oh,
don't I call you and say, hey, we're going to
yeah.
watch a movie today,
Yeah.
or I'm going to come cook for you today?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I love that. And I think that goes back to the whole, how what do you need me to do? How would you like me to support you? And I love that you both mentioned it's better to have that person physically there. So that may be something that you have to communicate, with your close loved ones that, hey, I appreciate you reaching out or, sending a text message, but pull up on me. you know,
Right. Because
come.
if you're calling me, I'm just going to be like, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
If I'm not answering the phone or if I'm not texting back, I'm in one of my moods. That means you need to come see about me. I've
Yeah.
learned that about myself because I tend to not want to bother people and I tend to not want to feel like I'm, burdening anyone with what's going on with me,
Mm.
or I don't want to be judged for being upset or stressed over something that somebody else might think is really
Right.
insignificant or silly.
Mhm.
I'll just keep it to myself.
And I think
I,
that's how a lot of people feel, where when we're feeling down, we think that other people won't understand or they'll underestimate what it is that we're feeling. So that's why I think it's so important that you have a circle or that you have people that will allow you to feel whatever it is that you're feeling and that are willing to be there to help you out in any way that they can.
absolutely. I feel like that too because okay, we have some comments, you all. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It seems like it'll be hard. Cassandra Anderson said it seems like it'll be harder to get a man to crack. But it's good that they're taking that step because it's so hard for men. Yes, it is. I
Yeah,
agree.
it is. It is. But it's getting better. I
Yeah,
promise you.
it's getting
I
better too.
Yeah, like I'm so excited to be able to say that I have a lot of men that I'm servicing right now. But it is I think the thing is a lot of men they were taught or society tells them that they have to stay strong or they shouldn't
Right.
cry or they shouldn't show many emotions. So I'm happy to see that that stigma is getting a lot better.
I hear that so much. So
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, so I think as a society, we have to do better in letting men know, hey, you're human as well. So if you're human, you're gonna have feelings just like everybody else, and you don't have to hide it.
Absolutely. Okay, so what are the most common mental problems our society is facing nowadays that you see the most?
Definitely depression, anxiety. Um, with children, there's a lot of ADHD. Um, And also, I would say adjustment disorder. So basically, that's just a reaction to some type of life event that's going on. But I definitely think that depression and anxiety are the top two in both children and adults.
Wow.
Yeah. And a lot of
Mm.
people, and this is just based on the numbers. Imagine how many people don't go to therapy. Imagine how many people don't really realize that they have depression or anxiety. So I think that if we really knew the numbers, it would be mind blowing. I really think so. Just because we're just going based off of the reports. So just imagine what those numbers would look like if everybody knew what it meant to be anxious or have clinical depression or have generalized anxiety. Those numbers would be through the roof, definitely.
Mike said ADHD, ODD, depression, anxiety.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I was going to ask if you feel like a lot of the mental health awareness and mental health issues got brought to the forefront, a little more expeditiously due to the pandemic and the conditions that we are all facing with not being able to go out and having to school our children at home and not really being able to socialize and maybe facing cutbacks from work or a change in your work status and things like that. Do you think that the pandemic had anything to do with people having a little bit more of awareness of mental illness because they were going through such frustration and depression and sadness over the state of what their life had now turned into?
Most definitely, because we weren't distracted. You know,
Right.
we didn't have the everyday life, hustle and bustle distracting us anymore.
Oh, oh, I was
Yeah.
just about to say on that question, wait a minute, because my whole day stopped. I never thought I would live to see something like that.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, it,
So
it was such an adjustment for all of us. I mean, from when you think about the children, they were having to adjust to virtual school. Parents had to adjust to virtual work or being home with their kids, and everybody's trying to work virtually. There were so many things that came to surface for people with being
money
anxious.
problems, money
Yeah.
Right.
issues.
Uh,
Some people couldn't get to work
Yep.
uh-huh.
because they couldn't work.
Yeah.
Yes, there were things put in place to try to help people buy, but people still wanted their rent.
Yep.
They
Of
still
course.
wanted their light bill.
Yep.
Of course. Yeah. And I honestly, I think some of us are still recovering.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it definitely had a major impact on families as a whole and just, the shape of perspective of what life looked like because nobody imagined this. Nobody prepared for this. We didn't study for this in school. Okay, guys, one day there's going to be this thing called coronavirus,
Exactly.
going to force you to shelter in place, and you're not going to be able to go out, and you're going to have to do school at home. And sorry, kids that are graduating, but we're not going to get to have your graduation ceremony. I
Yeah.
mean, it was definitely challenging. I mean, my elementary school student that was going into 6th grade, he didn't get to have his 6th grade graduation. His first year of middle school was virtual. So for him, it was definitely an adjustment. They were going to let them play sports, but then they pulled back at the last moment and said that there was too many cases. So he got a late start in, his football and track career with the school because of that. So that caused, a lot of adjustments and a lot of frustrations. And then just within the household, I mean, everybody's basically on top of each other because we're all home at the same time. I mean, even our dog was looking at us like, can y'all go somewhere? Hey,
This
can
the
y'all go
most I have ever seen you all.
Right. I'm used to having this couch by myself, just chilling, and here you all are in my way.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, it was a lot. And I think it also resulted in a lot of family conflict. Um, and I think this started in 2020. And I would say maybe beginning 2021, I started to see an increase in families that were coming to therapy together,
Okay.
or couples coming to therapy together, or even if it was just the child and the parent.
Right.
Um, there was definitely an increase in those two. And I think it came from being home together more, um,
Right.
not being able to socialize much outside of the home. So now you're having to confront communication issues. You're having to
Yeah.
confront, you know, um, maybe unexpressed or trauma that hasn't been dealt with before. So there were just so many, yes, I see the comment there, domestic violence for sure. So there were
Absolutely.
just a lot of things coming to surface that you couldn't ignore anymore.
Absolutely. I know my son, we had to do a virtual birthday party over Zoom. So everyone just connected on Zoom. And we had to do a birthday party that way because it was right smack in the middle of everything that was going on. So it was friends and family, and we had a dance party and all this other kind of stuff, but nobody had ever done that before. We were like, what is this? Like, we were
Mhm.
barely using Zoom for work, and here we are, having to use it to live stream graduations and live stream weddings and live stream births and other life
Yeah.
events that people could not attend
Uh-huh.
as we were advised to have to shelter in place and not move forward. I did have another question and wanted to get your take on this.
Okay.
How do you feel about people addressing trauma from their past? I feel like a lot of people experience traumas and then they become adults, and then maybe they become parents and they get in relationships, but they never really addressed the traumas that impacted them, when they were younger or when they were children. Um,
Mhm.
they act like it didn't exist, or they act like they are over it. Is
Mhm.
that actually the case? Can you just self process and get over trauma? Or is that something that you do need a licensed mental health professional to guide you through?
I think there are different levels of trauma. I often hear people talk about, oh, trauma only is when something big happens. But that's not actually true. Trauma can be anything
I'm glad you.
that has impacted you, that impacts the way that you think, the way that you see the world, the way that you process things. So I would say there may be some things that happen that are traumatic that a person can work through themselves, but only if they're actually facing it. I don't
Right.
think that anybody just, you know, gets over it without actually facing and processing it.
Hmm.
And there are some traumatic incidents that you do need a licensed professional to actually guide you through the process of that trauma resolution, or
Right.
being able to develop the coping skills that are needed for it. And you said something really powerful where a lot of people think, oh, I'm over it, but they're not. It
Right.
comes out in the way that they interact with the people around them. It comes out in how they view themselves. It comes out in so many ways. And
And
if
I
you're not facing it, then it is going to control you as well as your life.
And I feel like if you haven't really dealt with it and if you haven't really processed it, then you're someone that's more likely to be triggered by similar events that have to deal with the type of trauma that you've experienced in your life.
Definitely. It's definitely one of those things that I've noticed as a therapist. One of the hardest things for me is someone will come to therapy and they'll tell me, okay, well, this is what I want to work on. But then as we're talking and as we get deeper, there are things that have happened to them that they have no idea has been influencing
Right.
everything in their life. They have no idea.
Right.
And that's one of the hardest moments for me as a therapist, to really stop and say, wait a second, let's talk about that, because I don't think that you've actually worked through this before. um, so I just think a lot of us are living with trauma and we don't even know it.
I
Oh,
agree.
I can agree with that as
Yeah.
well. Is there anything you wish people understood better about mental health?
um, I would say everybody has mental health. I know that may sound strange for me to say that, but I often hear people refer to mental health as a bad thing. Meaning, I think somehow people think when we say mental health, we're saying that someone has some type of disorder. No, everybody has mental health. Just as everyone has physical health, you have mental health. So I think the thing that I would want everybody to know is that your mental health is just as important as your physical health. I know I'm a therapist, so I may be a little bit biased, but I believe your mental health is most important. Just because everything depends on your mental health actually. So I would just say mental health is something that we should all take serious. We should do things on a daily basis that enhances or improves our mental health. Just because again, everything in our lives depend on our mental health. There's nothing that we cannot do that's not impacted by our mental health.
And I'm glad you said that because I was doing my research that I usually do. And it is said that the number one crisis right now that people are facing is mental health. I mean, so it's not like we're not just going to say like one person, like most of us do
Hmm.
go through something at one point if, in our lives. Like you said, anxiety, depression, OCD, psychosis. What do we need to do? Should we ask our friends, you know, I, what do we need to do as a society, like to understand this a little bit better? Because you do, when you tell somebody, oh, I'm going through a mental breakdown or something, they automatically be like, oh, she crazy or
Hmm.
something. That'd be like the first thing in somebody's head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's so true. I really hate that, but it's definitely that's the first thing that people say. It's like, "Oh, you're going crazy." No, it just means that there's something that is impacting us that's causing us not to function in the best way possible. So I think everyone should just one understand and give everybody grace. Give
Right.
people grace to experience whatever it is that they're experiencing without making them feel bad about it. There are some things that we cannot control. We cannot control how things make us feel. So therefore,
Mhm.
we have to create a safe space for people to actually admit that they're struggling mentally, and not only give them a safe space, but also again it goes back to what we talked about earlier, asking people what they need from us, offering them support, giving them resources. If you're in therapy, share your therapy experiences. If you found a good psychologist or a good psychiatrist, if you're participating in any spiritual work, encourage the people around you. Share with them the things that work for you. Of course, not everything will work for everybody, but it's good to let people know that they're not alone because all of us struggle with something. So
And
we
Mike
have to,
said, have empathy. I
exactly,
agree.
Yeah.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
wanna I wanna mention circadian disruption. Have you all heard of that?
Yes.
Say that
Okay,
again.
so they said like circadian
Okay, yes, I actually
disruption.
have. Yes, I have read about that before.
So they said if you're up from the night at 10 p.m. to 4 o'clock in the morning, it is said that, of course, you're not getting any rest. So some risk symptoms include difficulty falling to sleep or staying asleep, excessive daytime sleepiness, extreme tiredness, decreased alertness, and difficulty concentrating, trouble controlling your mood
Mhm.
and emotions, which makes a lot of sense if you're not getting any rest.
Right.
But you're putting yourself at risk for cancer, many other diseases out there.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, wow, because
Yeah.
and it's not like it'll happen right then, but if you keep doing it and keep doing it, eventually something is going to come about.
Yeah, there's some long-term effects there.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a buildup, and when you're in a situation like that, or when you're in what I call the flight or flight,
Mhm.
when you live in that syndrome, your body is always on guard, waiting for the next shoe to fall off, or the next problem to happen, or you to hit the next pothole, or for you to get the next flat tire. So your body is just brewing with stress hormones and cortisol and
Yes.
Mhm.
feel well, because it's now, what's going on with you mentally is now starting to affect you physically.
Physically, I was just about to say that. So not just mentally, but now you're in the physical state or where you're not able to function. So
Right.
this is how important it is for
Mhm.
us to I try to advocate loving yourself, catering yourself, because a lot of people will say, well, that's like, and I'm not talking about being the selfish part, because they be like, oh, well, if you just do this for yourself and then you're just being selfish. No, sometimes we have to do that to get ourselves back in a good place.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. Self-care is very important. It's not being selfish, it's taking care of yourself so that you can not only be present for yourself, but the people around you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't be the mother or, the wife or the spouse. You can't be those things if you're not taking care of yourself.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And can't nobody do it for you.
No.
Right.
So you have to try to do that for yourself, which means if it includes seek help, seek a therapist.
Mhm.
Me and Brenda, we advocate for that because sometimes we need that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, we have to encourage people and let them know that it's okay. The resources are out there. Sometimes people just don't know where to go. So it's great to have platforms like the one that you all have here, that you're taking the time to have conversations that a lot of people are afraid to have. And I'm sure that there are people who have been positively impacted by you all having these conversations.
We hope so. I mean, we
We
try to
hope so.
be very transparent about life and life's issues, and just because I might have experienced something, maybe there's someone else that has experienced something similar, and if my experience can help them get through it, then I feel good about that. And same thing,
Uh-huh.
with Dominique. I mean, we're certainly not experts. We try to bring on professionals as often as we can, but
Yes.
we speak from experience, and we speak transparently, like letting people know, like, this is a judgment free platform. So if you're feeling some type of way, this is a safe place for you to be able to express that, or to ask for help if you need it. And we'll try to get you the resources that you need.
Yeah, yeah, because you all are advocates, and we need more people. I wish everybody could do this, just to reach as many people as you can. So thank you guys for taking on that advocate role and sharing your experiences, because it is transparency that allows people to be vulnerable, and we need that.
Absolutely. Transparency is key, and so is vulnerability.
Mhm.
People need to not be afraid to be vulnerable. It's actually a very healthy thing.
Yeah, it is, because none of us are alone. You'll be surprised at how many people are experiencing similar things that we experience on a day-to-day basis,
Exactly. Exactly.
or someone that has overcome, what we're going through at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah,
And Mike said, can't be good for others if you're not the best version of yourself.
That's true.
definitely.
I so agree. And um w- the whole our podcast is not just about mental health. Like, we try to talk about a lot of topics, and it's just not about our opinions. And so we always invite others to come on the podcast and give their opinions,
Hmm.
because it's great when you have a platform where everybody can express themselves for what they how they think, because everybody don't think alike.
Exactly. Yeah,
you
that's
know
true.
so definitely judgment free zone where you can express yourself. Sometimes we have different opinions, but guess what, somebody may think like you, or might have went through what you went through.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it's always a good thing to have an open platform where you can do that, and you can do that here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can all learn from each other.
Right. Right.
Exactly. So, any final thoughts, ladies?
I would just like to state my thanks and appreciation for you coming on and joining us this evening to talk about, mental health and your experience as a counselor, and also talk about what led you to be a counselor. I think if more people realize that they do have a knack for being able to help people or being a good listener, without judgment, I think that would lead more and more people into the mental health profession. And we definitely need more and more people, because not all therapists and not all counselors, are right for everybody. I know that there's different specialties.
Hmm.
Well, it's kind of a let me get to know you and let me get comfortable with you. And you have to feel comfortable with someone before you're able to really start opening up and talking to them, because you're like, who is this person that I'm talking to? They're just sitting there writing notes on their notepad, probably judging me for the decisions that I made. And it doesn't necessarily work like that. So I thank you for your efforts and everything that you do and the information that you brought to us tonight for this podcast. We definitely have our eye on mental health and mental health awareness, and we will keep our eye on it and continue the conversation going, because just because we've talked about it a few times in the past and just because we're talking about it tonight doesn't mean that the conversation is over. We can always learn, and there's always more to be talked about.
Most definitely. And again, thank you guys so much for having me. Um, because for me, it's always about just spreading awareness. And it's always my goal that anyone listening can take something from the conversation and apply it to their life, whether it be reaching out for help or sharing the information with a family member or a friend, who may be in need of some help. So thank you all for allowing me the space to actually share some of these things.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much, Dr. Johnson, like, for coming on. Thank you so much. I'm sure that you do an amazing job at what you do. Um, Somebody wanted me to ask you all this question. What do you all think about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris? Don't shoot the messenger.
I think it's very interesting. I think that over the next couple of months, we're going to see a lot of things. So I think it's very important that we're paying attention to our mental health. I think it's very important that we're being mindful of the information that we're taking in, making sure we're not overloaded. Be informed, but don't overload yourself.
That sounds like good advice to me, because the memes and everything else has already kicked off. So it's going to be quite a bumpy few months until election time.
Most definitely. So just stay sane.
Stay safe. That's a good one.
Thank you.
All right, you all. Thank y'all so much for joining us tonight, and we will see y'all next Sunday with Brenna B.
All right, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank y'all.
Stay
Thank
sane.
you.